Hello there. Welcome to 24 Hours of Pass. This is 20 years of past learnings, and future vision. We're excited you could join us today for Melody Zacharias' session, Not Your Grandmother's AI. This 24 Hours of Pass consists of 24 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the past community. The sessions will be recorded and posted online after the event. You will receive an email letting you know when these are available. My name is Janice Gerbrandt, and I have a few introductory slides before I hand the reins over to Melody. If you require technical assistance, please type your request into the question pane located on the right side of your screen, and someone will assist you. This question pane is also where you can ask questions throughout the presentation. Feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the Q&A portion of the session, I'll read your questions aloud to the speaker. You'll be able to zoom in on the presentation content by using the Zoom button located on the top of the presentation window. Please note there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session, which will pop up after the webinar ends in your web browser. Your feedback is really important to us for future events, so please take a moment to complete this. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Microsoft and Intel. The staging of 24 Hours of Pass wouldn't be possible without their generous support, and they are the reason this event is available free of charge. If you'd like to learn more about Microsoft or Intel and sign up for information on how they can help you, please visit the sponsors page of the 24 Hours of Pass website. Oh, sorry, that's me. Keep learning all year long with Pass. Visit pass.org and check out all of the free educational resources available to Pass. Also, don't forget that Pass Summit 2019 will be happening on November 5th in Seattle, Washington. Head over to passsummit.com and register today. This 24 Hours of Pass session is presented by Melody Zacharias. Melody is a third-time MVP platform, regional mentor for Canada, and author and editor of the Let Her Finish book series. She's an enthusiastic volunteer for Pass since 2011, and you can find her on her blog at sequelmelody.com or get in touch with her on Twitter at sequelmelody. And now, without further ado, here is Melody with Not Your Grandmother's AI.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks for the introduction. Today we're going to talk about Not Your Grandmother's AI. And what does that really mean? We're going to talk a little bit about where did it all begin? What is the new direction of AI? Why is AI even important? How is it becoming integrated into our society? And where is it going to go from here? So just a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and then a little bit of forward-thinking direction. Where did it all begin? So this is the image that comes to mind often when I talk to my grandmother about AI. And she asked me, so what exactly is it that you work on? And I tell her that I've been working on AI within computers. And this is what comes to her mind, because back in the day, it was the Terminator that scared the bejesus out of everybody, that people were concerned that robots were going to take over the world. And it's really not that scary. It's fun to watch in movies, but that's not actual real life. Back in 2016, I started talking about AI and the vision of AI and where AI was going. That was back when SQL Server was just becoming the data platform. And Microsoft was setting us up for this transition, what that transition looks like. It was back when we were still doing pretty much everything on premise. We had talked about what is a private cloud and how data has changed from single stream inputs to OLTP or traditional BI with monthly aggregates to now to daily aggregates. And things were becoming what we considered was cutting edge, was maybe a hybrid cloud. And we were still fairly far off from large utilization of a public cloud. So we've really come a long way to multi-stream inputs, IoT, BI on demand with real-time transaction processing, and cloud processing becoming more the norm. To the point where even this day, the federal government of Canada has a cloud first mandate where they are looking at doing things cloud first as opposed to any sort of traditional on-prem. So you can see how things, when governments are starting to do cloud first, things are really starting to change. This is still back when in 2017, as things started to progress, and Microsoft has had a vision for their Cortana intelligence suite. This was before AI became really a buzzword. We had certain data sources and applications. This is when IoT was really becoming to gain some traction in the workplace. And we were starting to see sensors and that type of data input to create what was being called then intelligent apps, or intelligence where we combined all the data coming in from different sources. That was the beginning of the polybase for SQL Server. It was the beginning of external tables within SQL Server and joining up different types of information, whether it's relational or non-relational data, and starting to combine a couple of those things together. And that is what in 2017, Microsoft was calling their Cortana Intelligence Suite. And the idea behind that was then to create some sort of an intelligence out of all of these different facets of data to create either automated systems, more intelligent apps, or to allow people to do more with the data that they had. So back then, I was doing some demonstrations with bots. Many of you may have seen these in Skype. So if you take a look on the bottom left of the screen, it's a little bit difficult to see, but the guy's name is Murphy, and he is a Skype bot. And he, I don't think, is working any longer. I tried to get him up and working today to see if he could join us for a quick demo to show you where things were. So I left this screenshot up from a demo I had done in October of 2017. And back then, this was the start of using bots in our environment, in our workplace. It was a Skype bot. I used this a lot when I was teaching kids about what sorts of things that they could do with data and some interactions. And what this Murphy would do is he looks at photos. So he would look at my photo and he would comment on the fact that I was visually impaired because I wore glasses. He had a grumpy old man sense of humor, as it were, and he would say things like, "You had a ridiculous smile." So he was entertaining to interact with, but he was also spending a lot of time learning from photos that people would upload. And I liked this as a demo because it was quite good at explaining how computers did things differently than humans. It's not that a human couldn't look at that and make a guess at what maybe my age would be, and the fact that I wore glasses and noticed that, but the fact that it could notice things that maybe other people didn't. So this is another photo from a vacation I had had in Europe with my kids, and we had gone to the Matt Wax Museum. And I had stood beside Captain Picard, one of my heroes, of course, as a geek, and was quite excited to have a photo taken with him. And when I uploaded this to Murphy to see what he had to say, he had a difference in opinion on now what my age was. So it's interesting how the age became more accurate. This was a little bit later that I had done this. And he noticed that I had other people in the photo. So if you take a look at the photo, it's me and my idol, Captain Picard, and I was so excited to show people this photo, and I had shown it to quite a few of my friends before I had gotten around to actually uploading it here. So I was talking to my friends about how maybe I would blow up this photo and have a 5x7 done up of it and put it in my office so that I could geek out on it every day, and how exciting that would be to have that. And then I was playing around with Murphy, the face bot, and he takes a look at this photo and he says, "Oh, I see you've brought some friends. Here we go from left to right." And he finds not one, not two, but three people. So if you look closely at the photo, in the very back of between the two faces that are facing you, there's a side vision of somebody who apparently, I'm sure not on purpose, but photobombed my amazing photo with Captain Picard. And until I had actually run this through Murphy, I had not noticed that before. So I think it's very interesting how, as humans, we don't necessarily see everything that's in a photo, but we see what we're expecting to see. So one of the nice things about AI, and one of the things that it's going to be able to help us with in the future, is noticing things that we maybe don't necessarily focus on or notice ourselves, things that we don't see because we're not expecting to see them, or we don't see them because we have a bias towards that. And I'm not going to get into all the different ways that humans have biases and how we may or may not see something like that. But to be honest with you, until I had actually run this through the Murphy bot, myself, none of my family or friends had actually noticed that that person was there. And it's not because we didn't actually look at the photo, but it's not something that you're expecting. I have to admit, though, that after I ran it through Murphy and he noticed this person in the background, no offense to the man in the background, but I no longer liked the photo. I couldn't unsee the fellow in the background, and it kind of ruined it for me. So I never did get my iconic photo blown up and put on my wall. So that's my sad story of AI. But it's interesting to see how AI has come since then and how much we've progressed. So that was back in 2017. Now in 2019, this is more the face of AI. This is an informational bot that can answer questions defined by a knowledge set or a set of facts using Cognitive Services Q&A Maker. And it can answer much more open-ended questions using Azure Search. So conversation as a platform is the future. So it's great that we're already offering things to customers like Bot Framework and Azure Q&A Maker to do some of these things within our workplace. So things are starting to come along very nicely in terms of a how have we progressed point of view. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold. So what's the new direction? The Commerce Bot scenario describes a bot that replaces the traditional email and phone call interactions that people typically have with a hotel concierge service, for example. The bot takes advantage of cognitive services to better process customer requests via text, voice, or context gathering from integration with backend services. In the Commerce Bot scenario, in the Commerce Bot scenario, a customer can make a request for concierge services at the hotel. She can be authenticated via an Azure Active Directory or authentication endpoint, and the bot can look up the customer's reservation and provide different service options. For example, the customer might book a cabana by the pool, and the bot can use language and understanding intelligence services, otherwise known as LUIS, to parse the request. And then the bot walks the user through the process of booking a cabana for an existing reservation. For Cortana SkillBot, this scenario takes advantage of Cortana using the natural interface of the voice and custom Cortana SkillBot. You can ask Cortana to speak to an organization such as a mobile auto detailing company to help you make an appointment based on where you are at when you make the call. The bot can provide a list of services, times available, and duration. The Enterprise Productivity Bot does scenarios that show you how to integrate a bot with your Office 365 calendar and other services to increase productivity. The bot integrates with Office 365, making it quicker and easier to create meeting requests with other people, doing processes, finding the codes necessary in a directory to make phone calls, or to provide mock entry points. Sorry, excuse me. The information bot can answer questions with the Q&A maker. It can answer more open-ended questions with Lewis, and often information that is buried in structured query language such as SQL Server. It can be looked up. Imagine looking up a customer with cognitive services and a Q&A maker to allow the customer's questions to be answered by a back end of Azure without having to talk to an actual person. The Internet of Things, or IoT bots, is going to be, I'm going to show you a demo on that where the IoT can manage lighting within houses and other services that are run on IoT IoT bots. So next slide. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my keyboard has gone to sleep. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to come out of presentation mode just for a second here, so I can bring up the demo. So I'm going to show you Microsoft Translate. Actually, I'll show you the lighting demo first. So this is a Lewis demo. So this is Lewis who will interpret and adjust the house accordingly. So you can actually go to this location, this link, if you want to try this out for yourself. Make that a little bit bigger to make it easier for you to see. So I can either select from the items listed here to be able to change the lighting in the house, or I can actually make statements and type those statements here for them to be interpreted by the bot. So if I were to say it's time to go to sleep, it will adjust the lighting in the bedroom to make it quiet to be able to go to sleep. If I can't find the remote, it will turn up the light to make it a little easy to find the remote in the living room. If I'm expecting guests, I like how it turns on the outside light. But what if we were to type something? Mood lighting in the bedroom. So it turns on a little light in the bedroom. So that's interesting. What if I were to change the outside light? Oh, it doesn't understand the concept of outside light turning blue. However, I do like this one. Call Batman. And we get the shining light here coming out of the top of the house, so we can call for Batman. And it gives us the option to say mission accomplished, so that we can turn the light out again. So this is a step forward from the basic bots that we had looked at back a couple of years ago. And this is Lewis. So the next item I wanted to show you in terms of how the different processes are starting to evolve is some ways that a lot of businesses are starting to use AI now in their actual work day. So one of them here, I'll just start with, is the translation. I'm going to show you a translation demo right away, but I wanted you to see, I believe that I need to. Just going to make this a little bit bigger. So what we're going to look at is the translation project that was done by Microsoft Garage a few years ago. So this originally started a few years ago as a startup type project at Microsoft that has now become very mainstream. So you can see, oops, sorry about that. You can see here, this logo is the logo to start looking for. It's a logo that is here. This is my Outlook in my Office 365. So you can find it under your home screen. In Excel, you can find Translate under your review screen. And then in the review screen of Word, you find it under Language and then Translate. So what this actually does is allows you to translate your documents, your Excel, your Outlook, or your Word. So I have employees in Costa Rica, Pakistan, England, and on occasion, I've actually received emails in other languages. So I find this quite helpful in being able to contact, or to be able to actually just translate these emails or documents that I get without having to go back to the employee and say, can you translate this and send this back in English? So what I want to show here is, this is just a demo deck that I've created for this, to create this demonstration. And what it is a standard PowerPoint deck. And within PowerPoint, there's an add-in where I can either translate the slides. So I do some work for the federal government of Canada, and the federal government of Canada has a mandate for everything to be in dual language. So when I give presentations for them, I translate my slides. I send out decks in both English and in French. And when I do my presentations, I will do subtitles in French. In this case, I earlier refreshed this in refresh mode. It can take up to 5 minutes depending on the size of your deck. So I don't need to do that this time. And I'm going to leave my translation in English. So you can see, based on how I am speaking and what I'm saying, how good the translation is. This has improved dramatically in the last few years. And I want you to take have the opportunity to take a look at this. So what this is a QR code. If you were wanting a different language, you can download an app on your iPhone that would allow you to watch this or to listen to this presentation in different languages, or read the presentation in different languages. The QR code, or you can follow it in the same way by using the website listed, and you can go to that actual website to get the information. So what it will do, as you're seeing here, is it will present the subtitles for you to follow along in a language of your choosing. I've done this in many different languages for different presentations. At SQL Saturday Victoria most recently, I did it because in German, because I had a friend in the audience who spoke German, and the two people that were there from Germany, they also run a conference in Germany, and they were so impressed with this that they have decided to make it a mandate in Germany for their next conference to have subtitles for all presentations. making this far more accessible. So the nice thing about AI is it's not just there to make life easier, but it's also there to make life more accessible for those who need it. So if somebody had even just a difficulty hearing, even if they weren't unable to hear anything, but even some of us who, are aging and have a difficult time hearing, you can listen or read what you might be missing to fill in a couple of those missing words. The presentation subtitles are getting better at translating words like SQL Server or IBM, or words that are very industry specific. So if this were a technical presentation, the more times I did it, the more the AI would learn and be able to pick up those specific words that were important to my presentation. So this feature is fantastic for audience participation. It has a feature to allow the audience to ask questions. So I've done this presentation where I've had people ask me questions in a different language, and they come up on the screen in English. So not only is there the subtitling, but it allows better interaction with the audience itself. It has custom speech, so it will learn as it goes. It has a mic, so you can type or ask your question, making things far more accessible for everyone. The translator is powered by the Microsoft Translator Live feature built on Microsoft Translator APIs, which are part of the Cognitive Services API collection. The API enables businesses to add end-to-end real-time speech translations to their applications or services. This is already available and usable for you to integrate into your applications. It's as simple as using a QR code or 5-letter conversation code to do a translation. There are 10 spoken languages listed there on the screen, and up to 60 text languages. So you can speak in any of the 10 supported languages and subtitle to any one of the up to 60 plus text translation languages. Some are better than others. English is quite good. I have done presentations where we have tested it in Russian, Spanish, German, French, Dutch. I think Portuguese I did a couple of years ago, and even into Hindi and Sanskrit, I believe. So those are the languages that I personally have tried, and some are better than others. The main 10 spoken languages are by far better than the others. However, we were quite impressed, or at least the fellow who was helping me test the Hindi was quite impressed at how good it was. In some of these cases, it is very formal spoken language that it is translated into, and not so much the everyday conversation language necessarily, but as it learns, it will get better. It was that way as well with English in the beginning, and it is starting to get better as more people use it. It does, the custom speech is there to get technical terms, products, places, and names better than it used to. Things like Nike are done more appropriately than they used to be. It's not always picking it up. As you can see in the translation, this time it came out as night instead of Nike, but it is getting better all the time. Sometimes it has to be in context, so that makes a difference as well. The context is quite important. One of the more recent things that I've noticed as this custom speech has come along is that it is starting to take context, and instead of translating individual words, it's doing more phrases than it used. More accurate and appropriate translation in terms of how translation is properly done. So that makes a difference as well. So that's coming a long way as well. So there are 60 text translations. It can translate the text of a PowerPoint while preserving the original formatting, including translations from left to right and right to left languages. So this is important when translating presentations in particular, but it's also very true for translations of documents as well. The audience questions is quite useful and excellent for getting feedback when doing presentations in other countries or large groups of audiences that have a variety of languages being spoken as well. You can unmute the audience and let them ask questions. This makes audience participation better for those who are deaf or hard of hearing, to make it easier for them to follow the presentation and participate in the discussion, making inclusivity and accessibility important. So all of those are important inclusivity ways to use this application, as well as just general day-to-day use when conversing between different countries or employees, or even just between friends sometimes. So this is the location of the presentation translator. It can be downloaded or with your Office 365 included in your PowerPoint already. And I'm just going to switch back to my slide deck. So the nice thing about this is you can find it underneath slideshows. You can use it always. You can stop it at any point. You can always present with subtitles. And it's fairly simple to actually just translate slides. So if you want to just translate your slides from, say, English into, let me see. I think today I'll choose Japanese, mostly because I haven't done Japanese in quite some time. So it will automatically save it as a different extension. And we can take a look at what that. And then I think I like it because I like the idea of it coming up with the additional characters and how it utilizes that. So this is the same presentation in a different language. So this is the same presentation in Japanese, and you can see how it has fairly quickly translated my slide deck. So what you will notice here is any custom text that I've put in, it hasn't actually translated this text here. However, one of the new features that I just noticed recently is, should I choose to highlight that and then translate it, it will allow me to adjust my slides, and I can change it then from English. We were doing Japanese. It will give me the Japanese text here. So should I choose to make that change, I can copy that, go back to my slide, and add those characters in. So although it didn't automatically do it, it does allow me to make that translation or that change. So now I can just simply click on this next one and it will give me the characters here. So I could also copy these, change my translate text, and it will automatically change it. So it will change things with, it will allow me to make changes where needed. So that's a new feature recently. So again, any one of these locations, should I want to change this, I can have it, I can add this in here and it will change it for me. And then I can change it as I need. Unfortunately, I do not speak Japanese, so I'm unable to attest to how good that is, how good the translation is, but you can see how where it's obvious on a slide that something needs to be changed, it does actually change it. So where it said inclusivity, it has changed it. It's just within the actual drawings themselves where it hasn't changed the content, but or the URLs, but everything else it has changed, including my notes at the bottom of my deck. So that making it more accessible to whoever wants to review the deck themselves. So that is a great way to do presentations, or just make your events more inclusive, or your presentations, business presentations, more inclusive. So that's the PowerPoint deck for the demo. I'm just going to stop the subtitles for that. Bring back my regular deck here. Just going to take a minute to switch over. There we go. So again, this is the integration with Office 365 into Outlook, Excel, and Word. So it's already fully integrated for translation on the fly, very similar to what you had seen in the demo, where you get a pane where it gives you the option of changing what language you want to convert it into, and then it'll give you the translation itself. In Word, you can do highlight sections and do sections of documents, or you can translate an entire document. I've received legal documents from other countries where I'm unable to read them. I've been able to get them in a Word format and then translate them so that I can read them and understand those legal documents as well. So it works well enough to understand the meaning of the purpose of it. I'm not going to say that it is 100% accurate, and if something is of great importance, you may want to have a human review it, but we're definitely coming along a lot further in usability, at least in terms of being able to use something and not necessarily have no understanding, but that the translation is definitely good enough to use for conversational purposes. So why is AI important? One of the things that AI is really good at is predictive analytics. It's good at answering yes and no questions. It's very good at finding oddities. So for example, at the beginning, the photo I had showed you with the third person in the photo that I had not seen before. Those types of items, answering questions like how many of something, organizing things into different groups, and the now what kind of scenarios, which is very typical with the going to Amazon and it telling you, okay, well, what's the next book I'm interested in reading? Well, based on what you've read before, this is probably what you're interested in reading next. And those types of things. So that's where machine learning is outstanding at what it's doing. And one of the reasons that it's really good at that and why it's better than humans is this. AI is really good, just as computers in general are very good at following directions and instructions very quickly. So back in the day, if you want to call it AI, was simply a calculator. You know, I still remember my math teacher not allowing me to have a calculator in class because he thought it was cheating, that I should be able to, you know, do all of my math in my head and not have to have a computer to help me do that. Well, now it's to the point where we're wanting computers to do these things because computers don't take shortcuts. There's something called a heuristic, and a heuristic is essentially when we ask a question we will sometimes jump to a conclusion or make a decision based on how something feels or how we think it should be. And that's a way of drawing conclusions. If we had to make minutia kind of decisions every day on the simplest things, such as how do I, get out of bed and go to the kitchen to get a glass of water, if we had to make all the decisions about, okay, do I put my right foot down first or my left foot down first out of the bed? Okay, form a plan to get to the kitchen. Okay, what's the best path to get to the kitchen? How am I going to organize that? I'm going to think about it for a bit. Okay, I'm going to draw the conclusion that the fastest path is going past the washroom and not through the hallway. Things like that are the way that humans think. We just know. We know how we got to the kitchen the last time to get a glass of water. We'll just go that way again. We don't think about the minutiae details of how we do that each individual time. But AI, for it to be accurate and to do things consistently, correctly, and repeatably, it needs to follow a set path and a set form. So it needs to ask, is this the right question? And then it needs to form a plan. It needs to do some research to make sure that it's correct. It needs to organize the data, think about it, and then draw its conclusion before it comes to the right answer. Computers are much better at this than humans because they can do it so much faster. And this is why AI is now becoming very good at augmenting what humans do. So the current immediate future of AI is not the Terminator, is not robots taking over the world, but it is a matter of an augmentation of our day-to-day lives. The things that computers are good at, to be honest, are usually the things that as humans we really don't want to do anyway. If you think about somebody at the example I had given earlier about at a hotel where somebody needs to phone down and make a reservation for a cabana. If that person who is working at the registration desk needs to do that, say 50 times a day, every day for a year, they're going to start to hate their job. So the fact that we can have an AI that can take that phone call, do that reservation, and the person at the front desk can do higher value things or things that are even just far more interesting to that person, then we're going to have better job satisfaction and happier employees in general. So it's more now about how can AI augment what we do, and not so much is AI going to be taking over our jobs. But there's a lot of repetitive tasks that AI can do that can get us information that then we can work on and build on. So think of it as a DBA. There's a number of different reports that you need to scan, review, and make decisions on every day. Instead of checking that output all the time, if there was an AI that would check your output and notify you if something was out of place, and then you could then action that item instead of having to scan or review certain reports every day. And that's more the direction that AI is going at the moment. So what are those areas of AI that cognitive services can be used now, today, immediately? So because cognitive services leverage machine learning, you can leverage pre-built algorithms with APIs and harness these opportunities without a team of data scientists. That's what I really like about this. We can take speech and convert it to spoken audio into text, or use voice for verification, or add speaker recognition into your apps. Excuse me. Search, you can add Bing search APIs to your apps and harness the ability to comb billions of web pages, images, video, or news within a single API call. For vision, we can take images, process algorithms to smartly identify, caption, and moderate the pictures. With knowledge, we can map complex information and data in order to solve tasks such as intelligent recommendations and semantic search. to look at sentiment. Language, we can allow APIs to process natural language with pre-built scripts to evaluate sentiment or learn how to recognize what users want. Oh, sorry. And how is this integrated? I know that some of the clients that I've worked with, they're concerned about using the cloud and sending all of their information to the cloud. And something that's very new that's come about very recently is now some of these offerings are in containers. So there are quite a few still that are cloud only, so such as the vision, the face, video, content monitor, and custom vision, but text analytics are in containers, face is in containers, and recognition text is in containers. So what does that mean? Well, if you've been following the story of containers, it essentially means that the analysis of this process can be brought down into your on-prem data center and used using just API calls to the cloud to get the information. So you would be charged for the call to the cloud, but you no longer have to worry about your actual information being transferred to the cloud. There's a lot of companies that simply are just not interested in allowing any of their information off their premises. They're not interested in doing cloud anything for any reason. But that doesn't mean that you can't take advantage of some of these new AI possibilities. And Microsoft has realized that. They've made allowances for that. They've put a few items to start with in containers. I'm sure we will see more as this process grows and the demand for it increases. And you can take these APIs, run them on-prem, and still have that same benefit of, say, facial recognition or text analytics. So that was a very quick overview in 50 minutes of what are the things that AI is doing, where is it going, and where is it ending up. I've covered an awful lot of ground, and I'm not sure if there's going to be any questions, but Janice, is there any questions for us?
There are questions, so you should take a drink of water and we'll get started.
You could hear it in my voice. Sure, thank you.
I can hear it in your voice. I feel bad. I know you've been sick. So here's an interesting question. Does the translator do Braille?
Unfortunately, not yet. I absolutely
would. When I saw that question, I wanted to know the answer too.
Yeah, I wish it did. I'm not sure why it doesn't. Actually, that's a really good question. Whoever sent that question, if they could send me a message on Twitter, I'd like to see what we could do about chatting with Microsoft about that.
Okay.
I'd be happy to advocate for that for sure.
I had a comment. Somebody was running the translator while you were speaking, and the comment is that it was just amazing. It was translating word to word and then making completely formed sentences. And the language is, and I'm sorry I'm mangling this, Telugu.
Oh.
So that was not one that you had mentioned. So I thought that was just super cool. So even as you were going.
I think that's one of my favorite things about doing this presentation and showing that demo is the amazing languages that people come up with and how impressed they are at how good it is. Because I've been working with this for quite a few years, so I've seen it progress. But it's so exciting to see people get excited about it. Especially, I think it was one of the last times I did it. I think it was Creole that was listed in the list, and somebody had mentioned to me that they were amazed that it was signified by its dialect, because I think it was Creole anyway, that one of the languages that was listed had multiple dialects, and how the dialects themselves were independent of each other, even though they had the same name, and rarely do you see that differentiated. So the fact that it had actually been differentiated was amazing to them.
Somebody's asking if you need to be particular about your microphone when you're running the translations.
Surprisingly not. I've
Okay.
done the translations. So I did it today, actually just sitting at my desk with my laptop. I did tell my teenage daughter not to play her music too loud so it wouldn't interfere. But other than that, I didn't do anything particularly special. I've done it in large audiences and not had an issue actually with ambient noise, which surprises me because sometimes those halls where you do presentations can be quite loud. But if I'm not necessarily speaking, it will pick up sort of the next level of speakers. So if I was in a presentation room, it would pick up the first row of people speaking if I wasn't speaking. So it's fairly sensitive, but doesn't require any special equipment at all.
When you're running some translations, and this question is particularly about translating a deck, do you find it works equally well in both directions? So if you translated it from English to French and then I guess back from French to English, would it be equally good in both directions?
It depends on the types of words used. So there are some words in some languages that really don't get translated, is my understanding. My multilingual is not that great, but one of my employees speaks very good Spanish, and he said things like, for example, SQL Server. In Spanish, when he talks, he would still say SQL Server. He wouldn't translate that.
Okay.
So depending on whether the translator picks it up as a technical word and tries to translate it or not, some of those words can get it caught up. But general day-to-day speech is quite good.
I have a specific question here. It says, what's an example of the text recognition container?
So the text recognition container is like a container, like a Docker container in that sense. So the technical container is how those are run, and it's a lift and shift from the cloud down to your on-prem situation, so that it's a self-contained entity, I guess, in that sense. So it's more of a technical container. Does that answer the question?
It might do. And I think we have maybe time for one more, and then we can sign off unless I get some more. How do we not end up with a Terminator scenario? Who is censoring or auditing these AIs?
The ones that I demonstrated today are all owned by Microsoft. And Microsoft has a large mandate, and I believe they have a governing body that they collaborate with other corporations to work on that exact question. So I know that they are actively addressing those issues, and not so much just the Terminator aspect of it, but the ethics around training models and using models in general. There are large corporations that are getting together to have that discussion. A lot of the tech companies have panels and committees, I guess, to discuss those issues. I don't have the current details of it, but I did recently see something in the news where Microsoft was working on that exact issue. Satya had come out and spoken about it at a large conference recently in Europe, I believe.
Good. Well, I think that's all I have for now for questions.
Excellent. So up next.
Yeah, up next, stay tuned for our next session, which is indexes. Are things that different to 20 years ago with Rob Farley?
Oh, that'll be a fun session. Rob's always fantastic.
Uh-huh. And thank everybody so much for attending. And thank you, Melody, for that great presentation.
Thanks for putting up with my scratchy voice.
It was all good. All good. All right, I'm going to sign out now. Good night.